Well, hello, beautiful souls. James MacNeil here with an urgent encouragement for you and for people you may know. If you have ever lost faith in anything, from Santa Claus to Easter Bunny, but you may have lost faith in government, you may have lost faith in some friends, you may have lost faith in some business associates or employees or managers or something. You may have lost faith in religion. You may have lost faith in the media. You may have lost faith in the news, all kinds of things, education, economics, and so on. If you've ever lost faith, you probably know the feeling of it's actually grieving. We actually go through grieving when we find out that we have misplaced our faith. And it's urgent that we are people of faith. So, this cleaning up of misplaced faith is actually very healthy and very important. And so, I want to be an encourager to you. So, no matter how negative this information might feel, as far as that breakthrough of, oh my gosh, they lied to me, as much as that might feel negative, I want you to know it's actually good news and you're on the way to a higher reality. So, let's dig in. Again, my name is James MacNeil. I'm going to be launching something. This is a teaser for the Superhuman Network, where I'm pulling together the most encouraging, positive, insightful voices I can to create an entire network that can hopefully positively and will positively impact the world that we touch. And so if you are a person with a voice, you might be interested in joining us. So let's get started. Number one thing I want you to know that almost everything you've ever been told is BS. Almost everything you've ever been told is not true. Now, you might say, well, James, you're really being negative. Not necessarily, because that's not the end of the story. So first, we are completely blanketed in a world that's fake. Do you think our food is natural and real? Do you think our air has not been tampered with? Do you think the water has not been tampered with? We have fake food. We have fake news. We have fake friends. We have fake economy, which we can talk about. We have fake religions, we have fake spirituality, we have fake media, voices, you name it. We live in a fake world where people get their entertainment from fake things. Rather than playing games and hanging out with each other, we watch other people have fun on TV. And so it seems like we're in a fake world right now. And I want you to know that that is on purpose. There are people who created this fake world, like the Matrix, the world that's been pulled over our eyes to hide us from the truth. Well, that is what's going on, and I'm going to share with you. And I'm actually going to let you in on who's running the world. You might say, oh, are you one of those conspiracy theorists? When I share with you what I'm about to share with you, you're going to be like, duh, everyone knows that. So it's not going to be so shocking. And what I want to do is be encouraging. We have fake air, water, food, fake clouds, fake news, fake media, fake medicine, fake education, fake democracy, fake wars, fake justice, and fake philanthropists. We as a species have lost our way. We've lost our natural connections with ourselves. We have a shocking amount of depression and so on, and we'll get into that. But we've lost our connection with ourselves. We've lost our connection with nature. We've lost our connection with each other. We've lost our connection with our divine source, God, if you will, divine love, if you will, by whatever name you're comfortable with. We've lost our connection with reality. So everything is fake. We've lost connection with everything natural relationships, natural love stories, natural families, natural everything. Nothing's natural right now. And that's all by design. So we're going to peel that back. Because of this, we're not really living. There's 8 billion people that are technically alive, but how many of those are really living? Think about it. Think about yourself and your friends, people you know. Are they really alive, right? Are they really experiencing? Are they laughing and playing and singing and dancing and loving and heartbreaking and trying stuff and building things and creating things? Are we living? And I think you'd have to say no. We're largely numb. We're desensitized and detached. And that's our reaction to this fake reality that we've been living in. Our current state is we are, as a species, distracted. We are, as I was saying, we are distracted. We are divided. We are deluded. We are depressed. We are drugged, and we are demoralized. And again, all of this is part of the plan. So I want to talk to you for a moment about something called the human zoo. I'm going to be publishing a book called Escaping the Human Zoo. And let's just talk about zoos. A The safest place in the world for a wild animal today is in a zoo. And you can't really argue with me because it's a fact. What happens in a zoo is we get them in their perfect environment where the rocks aren't too sharp and the water's not too cold. And we create fences around them so predators can't attack them. They're safe from predators. If they're hunters, they don't have to go out on the hunt where they might get hurt. Also, on the hunt, there could be famine in the land, so there wouldn't be enough food. Or they could catch, kill, eat a poisoned animal that has some kind of illness and they could get ill. But none of that. Why? Because we have nutritionists organizing their diet that's provided to them on a daily basis at the right time, in the right temperature, in the right place. And we even give them mates. We provide a mate. They don't even have to go to the local bars. So animals in the zoo have the very safest life, except you and I and any sane person knows that's not living. They're trapped. And just like humans that are in a prison are provided food and housing and everything, you could say, oh, they're safe in there, or maybe they're not safe in there, but you might say, that's easy, but it's not living. And so when you increase security, some kind of guarantee, you're decreasing life, you're decreasing freedoms. And so we are living currently in a human zoo where there's so many regulations around us, so many controls on us. We have to use the fake money that they've told us to use. We have to obey all these rules. We get, let's say you live in a democracy. You get to vote once every 4 years, which means you get to choose between the three puppets that they've presented to you. At the moment, this is the reality that we are not living free. We're not living full. And most anyone would agree they can feel it. It's not the same. So my wake-up call was when COVID hit us. COVID really surprised me because they banned us from nature. I remember when they first locked us all down, they said, you can't go to the park. And I saw policemen putting chains at the entrance of parks. Did they think the trees were going to kill us? What we're not allowed to do is walk in nature, which is one of the most important things for human wellness. We're not allowed to hug. We're not allowed to connect. Everything that's essential for human life. And healthcare professionals were being threatened. If you dare talk about immunity, how to increase your immunity, your license will be revoked. And by the way, I know this. I read some of the content. I talked to some professionals, and they were told, if you talk about immunity, you're going to be in trouble. And it all just, I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Like, there's nothing scientific about it. And they were saying, trust the science, while they were shutting down all the scientists. And if you think I'm being conspiracy theorists, which is fine, if that's what you think, there's just too much data on it. So you can look that up yourself. You don't have to get mad at me. But there's too much data on where was the COVID-19 virus, it was 19, right? Where was it created? And then where was it manufactured, if you will? There's way too much. So I'm not going to get into that. I have come to believe that that wasn't an honest experience globally. But that's me. But when that happened, it started me thinking, wait, maybe I can't trust the authorities. I was raised by a very strict father. He was a law enforcement agent who struggled with substance and struggled with temper. Maybe that'll let you in on a little bit. But I was taught you trust the authority. You do what authority says. And so I was doing what the authority said, but I was like, okay. But I was just starting to crack, like it just didn't make sense. And so that one thing led to another, and I went down the rabbit hole, if you will, and started to look into how is the world really functioning, who's in charge, and what's honest and real. We were forced into mindless obedience, unchecked global authorities, whom are mostly anonymous, and those who enjoy complete immunity. If you think about it, the person with the most power should be the most responsible. But if there's people who have the power to say, we can employ your law enforcement agents to make sure that you stay at home and you do this and you do that. We have that much power and at the same time, complete immunity. If we're wrong and everyone dies, we can't be held responsible for anything. Power and responsibility must go together when there's power without responsibility. Please remember that. It's a central reality of life. And so when I realized they have no responsibility, unquestioned, unchecked power, I was like, something's fishy now. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And like I said, it felt for me, and it feels now, like we're living in a world that, in a sense, was whispered to us in movies like The Matrix. Like the world has been pulled over our eyes to blind us from the truth. And so I'm going to share some truth with you now. I'm going to tell you who's in control of the world. It's so obvious. There's no conspiracy to it. So I'll explain. Before I get into that, I just wanted to, for those of you who don't know me, I want to explain who I am. And so just a real quick glimpse into me, my world. My name is James MacNeil, and I have spent over 30 years as a professional communicator. My expertise is communications. I'm an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant trainer. I've circled the globe multiple times, shared the stage with the biggest, most famous people you know. I created Verbal Aikido, the world's most advanced, authentic communications philosophy, pure spiritual intelligence. And I've also raised up wealthy world changers, helping people become $1 million a year author, speaker, coach, consultant, and trainer. So these are some of the things that I've done. But what I wanted to also add is my past. So I could not speak in sentences until I was 9 years old. I could not read until I was 21. I have ADHD, dyslexia. Why did they make it a tough word to spell, right? Dyslexia, not fair. ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, complex PTSD, hypersensitivity, both audio and tactile, and more. I've got other things. So I've got all these things that didn't set me up for success and didn't come from a wealthy home and all that. So I have no college, no university. I've been able to do the things I've done quite miraculously. And so what I want to say is, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I want you to have hope. This video is about be encouraged. If you lose faith in things that don't deserve faith, you're well on your way to a wildly successful, positive life. So it hurts to feel tricked. It hurts, right? When we're little kids, we think mom and dad are superheroes. They're the greatest, most powerful people on earth. They're perfect. And somewhere along the way, we find out they're not perfect, and then we have to survive that. As for some of you, had to survive the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus stuff. So there's stuff from our childhood that we had to survive the loss of a belief. And so if you're losing belief in things that don't deserve your faith, then that's good. So that's a little bit about me. I mentioned I'm launching the Superhuman Network. So we're going to create the ultimate ecosystem for anyone who's a podcaster. You want to get a message out there. If you've got a story, if you've got a voice, if you've got a perspective that can make the world a better place, I want to talk to you and explode that capacity. And that's going to be launching within a couple of weeks. So again, a Superhuman Network. And my show will be called the Superhuman Movement. That'll be starting soon. All right, back to work. Who is ruling the world? Are you ready? It's so obvious. All right, here's how I'm going to set it up. Who here knows the golden rule? The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which means treat people the way they want to be treated, just like you want to be treated the way you want to be treated. So it doesn't mean treat everyone the same, because people are different. So that wouldn't be fair. So the only way to treat everyone fairly is to treat everyone differently, because everyone is different. So to respect the realities that that person is having and adapt to that, that's the golden rule, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Then Wall Street came up with its own golden rule, and it is he who has the gold makes the rules. We don't, money isn't backed by gold anymore, so that's fake. So now here's the people who make the money make the rules. Now let me be clear. I'm not talking about Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or anyone else. I'm not talking about the people who earn money. I'm talking about the people who make the money out of thin air. There was no money and poof, now there's money. When you take out a loan from the bank, if they're honest with you, they will not say the money will be deposited into your account, because it's not deposited into your account. It just appears in your account. The money that we have around the world is called fiat currency, which means it's made up. And in fact, it's all debt. If everyone paid off all the debt, if all the governments paid off all the debt and all the people paid off all the debt, there would be no money, because what we currently live on is a fiat currency that is fake. It's not real. But if it works, it works. But this explains the booms and the busts, and it explains why we have unnecessary made-up wars, because it's shifting in power and control. But I want you to know that the people who print the money, people who create it out of nothing, it just appears, those people run the world. If they control the money, they control the government, they control the corporations, they control the media, they control all of us. If you have a printing press of money, you rule the world. Now, I think that's kind of obvious, and that's what we have.
One of them is Mayor Amschel Rothschild.
And if you're a Rothschild, I apologize if I butchered that name. He is said to have said, and I tried to verify it, but I couldn't verify 100% that he said this, but this has been quoted tons of times. He said, "Let me issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes the laws." Because if you create the money, if you control the money, you control the judges and the lawyers and the politicians. You control everyone if you make the money. So the people who create the money rule the earth. And that shouldn't be so shocking. It's obvious. Anyone who has the ability to print money controls all the governments and everything else. So that's who controls the world. When Rothschild said that, if he said that, it was at a time that I think the only country they had their central bank was in London, England. And so the international banking cartel rules Earth, right? So the people who run the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, all of them, these are the people who rule the Earth. Of course they do. They print the money. They invent the money. They just create it out of nothing. So they have undue influence in every part of this world. So that's who, right? If you want to look into this, do your own homework. The two books I suggest are The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, brilliant, and Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. I'll put those book references in the information under this. Going back to who's ruling the world and what's going on, I want you to now know that life is fake difficult. So right now, it's fake. It's fake. So let's go back in time to 1950. Now, I wasn't around. I'm not that old, just a kid. But in the 50s, you could see videos of it, you could study it, but families with a mom and a dad and their 2 to 4 kids, right? So a mom and a dad and let's say 3 kids, and they have one income. And back then it was normally the father who was out working, but whatever, one income, and the other parent stayed home with the kids and instilled values and helped them with their mental wellness and passed on wisdom, which nobody has time for anymore. But back in the 50s, one income, and they owned their own home, they owned their own car, they took vacations, they funded their kids' education, and they funded their retirement, which was fully funded before the age of 65. In 1950s, one income took care of a family of, how many did I say that is? Mom, dad, 3 kids. So a family of 5 owned a home, owned a car, took vacations, paid for their child's education, and paid for their own retirement. And mom and dad could be fully retired by the age 65. And in the 50s, when that was happening, politicians, economists, all of the authorities were saying, this ain't nothing. With today's breakthroughs of technology, you're not going to have to work so hard. At that point, it was one person working 40 hours, let's say, maybe 50. Woo. And they said, no, it's going to get easier. With new technology, you're not going to have to work so hard at work, and you're not going to have to work so hard at home. You're going to have way more time for leisure, for travel with your family, for enjoying life. There's going to be less stress with today's technology. With manufacturing, we're able to do more for so much less. The golden age is upon us. And I remember one radio host, he said, within 10 years, he said in 1950-ish, people will be spending over half their income on non-essentials. They're going to have so much money that they're just going to go have fun. That was in 1950. How are we doing? We have become 500 times more productive. The running shoes that cost $12 to manufacture or less cost $200 to buy. In the manufacturing, it is overpriced, We're in a world right now that it should not be this difficult. There's an idea I want to work with AI on called vertical intaxation. So if you think about your breakfast, let's say you have bacon and eggs and you have orange juice and I don't know. But if you were to track them back to the farm, right, the farmer has to pay tax on everything. They have to pay tax on the equipment that they buy. They have to pay tax on the seeds, pay tax on the land. They have to pay income tax. They have to profit. And when they profit, their costs, including all of these taxes, are added to the cost. So then they sell it to the next person in the chain and then the next person. And everyone has to pay tax until it ends up on your table. Then you had to pay tax on your income and your house and everything else to be able to sit there and eat it. And you paid sales tax when you bought it. Now you might say, well, how is this? How you're not very motivational, James. This isn't good news. If that's all there was, it would be bad news. But the good news is we're humans. And so we're better than this. So as I mentioned earlier, at the moment we are distracted, divided, deluded, depressed, drugged, and demoralized. That's true. But the good news is we're humans. And humans are special. So I just want to share with you that we're better than this in every way. And this is actually the best time to be alive. People are so depressed and upset and angry. People are picking fights with each other. Let me just say this about the machine, the game here. They don't care who you hate as long as you hate. They don't care what you fear as long as you fear. What they want you to be is trapped inside of this egoic, reactionary, needy, and greedy state. The last thing the machine can tolerate is humans who are happy and connected to each other, connected to their divine connection, their higher selves, connected to nature, enjoying good meals with good people, having a good impact on their good community. This is actually the best time to be alive. And are you aware that, like, kings and queens, they could have been as rich as Solomon, whatever, right? But he had to go outside to go to the washroom, right? He didn't have running water. He didn't have electricity. He didn't have phones and so on. We live better than the richest people in human history up until about 100 years ago when we got electricity and running water and so on. So that's pretty cool. They only found out about germs in the last 200 years. Before 200 years ago, they didn't understand why people were all dying from germs. So it's pretty flippin' awesome to be alive today. You know, with my phone, with your phone, we can text with people all over the world instantly. We can talk to them. We can have video calls. You can study everything that you can learn world history, what hasn't been too tampered with. AI can help you invent anything. They're expecting within the next year or so the first solo billionaire entrepreneur, which means they have no employees. It's just AI just does everything. And so this is the coolest time to be alive by far, and we're the coolest of all creation. So humanity is the greatest of all creation. We're very special. It took 13.8 billion years of the universe's existence for intelligent life to appear. And yes, I'm calling us that. And the level of human consciousness with which we're familiar might be only like 10,000 years old, right? Recorded history is only 5,500 years old. It may not have been that much longer before that we actually became what we know to be as human beings. So the species could be just 10,000 years old, which is pretty awesome. 13.8 billion years. A billion seconds is 32 years. Millions and billions are dramatically different. So 13.8 billion years, and human consciousness might be 10,000 years old. So we're pretty new on the scene, and we didn't have running water or electricity till about 100 years ago. So it is, in fact, the coolest time to be alive. And we're the coolest of species. And we're struggling, and I want to get into how did we get into this mess? How did we let this happen? So the way I want to describe it is we're just immature. So up until about the 1600s, we as a species were on a daily struggle for survival, right? Every day was, where am I going to find food? Are there bad people or bad animals going to come and attack me? So we were in survival mode up until about the 1600s. And so I'm going to say in the 1600s, we were like a 16-year-old when we started saying, hey, wait, we can get above survival. We can start thinking and being scientific and so on. That's the age of enlightenment and the scientific revolution. And we said, okay, we can really, really start using our brains, which is distinct from our mind. Your mind is part of your spiritual anatomy. Your brain is something it uses. But we got really left-brained. We got really into the, what can we control? What can we measure? What can we do? And then around the 1800s, we finally had a middle class. See, all there were up until then was rulers and peasants, slaves, or working class, whatever. There was only two classes of people, the aristocracy and the people who begged for their mercy, I guess. In the 1800s was the birth of the middle class. It happened in the United States. The term middle class was invented, I believe, in England, but the existence of it was in the United States. And these people no longer belonged to the working class, but they certainly weren't the aristocracy, and they didn't know what to do with this newfound power. The aristocracy said, well, no, we don't like that. How do we stay in power, and how do we keep these people distracted? And so it goes back to the terms power and responsibility. So as these people became more powerful, they were like, what do we do with this newfound power? The aristocracy said, well, what if we start taking away these problems from you? We'll educate your kids. We'll create a government that does everything and don't have to worry about all of that. Just pay the taxes and whatever. And what we didn't know is we were handing over our freedom because freedom is a form of power. Power is the ability to act and influence. And when we hand over our ability to act and influence to someone else who has the power now to act and influence, we have given up our power. By avoiding responsibility, we gave up our power. And so in the Bible, there's a story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son went off and blew the family fortune and debauchery and drinking and partying and all that kind of stuff. And he found himself broken, desperate, and enslaved in a far off land. That is where we are today, right? So I'm going to say, let's say the 1600s, we were like 16 years old. The 1800s, we were like 18 years old. And today we're 20. And we've got to face the fact that we just gave away the earth, right? It's like, okay, oops. And that's the reality. And somewhere along that line, we stopped the evolutionary flow. Up until about the 1600s, we were evolving mind, body, and spirit. And then when we shifted to this left brain reality and this growing fake life that we have, we stopped evolving. And so it's time for us to wake up, to step up, and to begin to move into this, reawaken this quest towards enlightenment, to the higher evolutionary flow of humanity. We are mind and body and spirit. We seem to have forgotten that. And so as we awaken and we calm down, and as we connect with ourselves and each other and our divine connection, God, if you're okay with the word, and we reconnect with nature, all of a sudden, the tricks and whatever are just going to stop working. Now, there's going to be a massive shift to get the world back to free. So Jamie Wheel made this incredible statement. You've got to check out his work. He said, we're at the intersection of coming alive and staying alive. So the species has been working on coming alive, but the ability to stay alive is moving in the opposite direction. We can now self-terminate, right? With nuclear war and with viruses and there's ways that humanity can cease to exist. And that's new, right? We didn't have that kind of power 200 years ago, but now we have the power to terminate ourselves as a species. So it's pretty important that we wake up and make the shift. So he says we're at the intersection of coming alive and staying alive. And so it's time now for us to say, okay, apologize. We blew it. Let's grow up. Let's take responsibility and make this world great, because we can. I just want to talk about just how cool things are. Yes, we have cool things as far as we can fly around the world in jets and we can use our phones and do cool things in AI. But I just want you to know that what AI and robots are doing now is they're about to take away 50% of the jobs. And you can say, oh, no, that's going to, destroy the economy and so on. Listen, if we get control of the world back, right, and things were real and natural, oh my goodness, it's awesome, because basically everything that isn't fun, the robots and the AI will do. Like AI is going to, I would say within less than 12 months, I predict that AI will absolutely solve the riddle of solar power in a way that works. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't work at all, but you may know that there's some imperfections in solar energy right now. AI is going to solve that, and we will have limitless clean burning fuel on the planet. How do you like that? Limitless clean burning fuel. That's pretty sexy. And the robots are going to do all the stuff, manual labor that we might not enjoy, and AI can solve the problems. So then what's left for us to do? And that's the good news. We are being forced to become more human. We're being forced to become more human. What makes you really, really special is your unique personhood. What makes you special is you, right? The essence of who you are makes you free of commoditization. So you could say, oh, wait, James, you could have AI give this speech for you. Yes, but AI can't have a soul touch a soul. So it can give the information, but it can't do me, and it can't love like I love. It can't care like I care. And so there's more going on here than sounds and sights. What's going on here is my soul is crying out to your soul to be encouraged, and let's wake up. Let's have a great world, right? And AI can't do that. It can create a great simulation of it, but it can't do soul to soul. It's always been soul to soul. When egos touch egos, it's transactional. But when a soul has an authentic connection to another soul, neither soul leaves the way they came. And AI cannot do that. If you're authentic, you're irreplaceable. If you're authentic, you are infinitely valuable and precious. So we're being forced and we're going to be fine. You might say, oh, are you talking about universal basic income? I don't think so. I think it's going to be different because universal basic income says someone has control of those purse strings and can simply turn off the tap and say, you're not allowed to eat today because we don't like what you said about the prime minister or the premier or the whatever they call the leaders. And so it can't be ruled by untrustworthy souls. It just can't be. Let's say that the world was changed economically in such a way that 10 hours of work a week makes you wealthier than you can imagine, right? 10 hours of work a week and you have everything you need. You've got the cars or whatever's your jam. Then you don't need a universal basic income. You just need people to put in 1 hour a week or something that improves the experience of humanity. And you're going to have more than enough. Like, make it easy, make it real, honest, and everyone can be fine and we can take care of each other. The government hasn't proven itself trustworthy to distribute money. And people say, oh, tax the rich, tax the rich. Okay, let me just say this. There's no amount of tax that they can't lose. There's no amount of tax that they can't misuse. There's no amount of tax that they can't misappropriate into something that's more destructive than helpful. It just doesn't work. And by the way, if you're wondering who should foot the bill, how about the people who can print the money? Taxing the rich, all I'm saying is there's going to be a new way of managing things, and it's pretty exciting because then we're going to be free to be who we are, and that's what makes us special. I want you to imagine a world where humans are healthy and happy and sane and kind. I'm not saying people won't keep being jerks. Yeah, humans are jerks sometimes. We're all jerks sometimes. So I'm not saying perfection, but what I'm saying is real, authentic, and healthy, and to move past survival. Maybe it looks a bit like Gene Roddenberry's vision in Star Trek. There was no money. People just moved on, and they were doing other cool things, exploring space in that case. But I believe in humanity. I believe that divine has created us in such a way that we're here not just to make it, but to make it better. This is the coolest time to be alive. And we can take things back. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's essential and it's now. So for one and all, thank you so much for joining me. And if you're interested in having a show on the Superhuman Network, please let me know. We can have a conversation. How to let me know? I'll put something in the description here that you can click on and connect with me. But we're looking forward to bringing a message to change the world because remember, please remember, we're better than this. We are better than this. It's time for us to show it. Love, joy, and peace. Have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day. Please do click follow up, follow through, and let's see what we can do together. God bless.